You know, not long after the invention of the firearm, we figured out they'd be a lot more useful if you could hit something with them. That's our topic of discussion today, specifically red dots, how to mount them, how they operate, how you can take advantage of them, and of course, some of the naysayers out there and why they say you shouldn't use them, and I'm going to dispel some of those myths. So stay tuned, this is going to be a fun episode. So why a red dot? There's some basic criteria for anything that you stick on a carbine. Lightweight, compact, and durable. And honestly, it needs to be effective. And that's where the red dot shines. No pun intended. So how does it work and what are the advantages? Well, a red dot actually takes a LED and it projects that LED onto an angled piece of glass that's specially coated. You'll notice when you look at a red dot sight that the end of it's usually got a red colored lens. Well, here's the way that works. It serves as a beam splitter. Whenever you project that LED onto that angled piece of glass, when you look through this end, the operator's side, well, what you're seeing is a dot that's projected out there on whatever it is that you deem the target. That's where it gets pretty cool. When we talk about parallax, like magnified optics, you need to be able to put your head in the same place every time. Well, what makes this super fast is I don't have to do that with a red dot. Parallax free means I can pretty well put my head in sort of the same place each time, and as long as I'm putting that red dot where that projectile needs to go, that's where that projectile is going to hit. So what are some other advantages? Well, of course, over iron sights, these things are much faster. An iron sight, well, you have to have your head in the same place every time in order to be effective. The other thing about a red dot, of course, is you're removing points or decisions from your decision stack. That's a real fancy word that means I don't have to think about what I'm doing in order to accomplish something. The less decisions that I have to make in order to get that projectile on target, the better off I am. And that's where red dots shine. Let's talk about that decision stack and what makes a red dot superior to just about everything else. The decision stack consists of a number of items that you have to be able to do in order to be able to pull that trigger. So if you go backwards from trigger press, you need to be able to press trigger. Previous, it's identify the target, it's acquire the target, and then of course, make certain that you are ready to engage the target. That's a lot of the mechanics of running the gun. So if you can eliminate some of that stuff, the acquire, identify, and speed up that process, well, you're doing so with a red dot by eliminating a lot of those decisions within that decision stack. Not having to have the same mechanics is super beneficial. So if you've ever run a carbine course and you're shooting through a slot or you're shooting around a target, you know that you're not going to have your head in the same space on the backside of the gun every time. That's again where that red dot shines. Not having to have that same parallax penalty as a magnified optic, it gives you the ability to get that red dot on the target and get it there faster. And if you think about it, that's almost intuitive. You know, when we were toddlers, we were pointing at things that we wanted. That same process in our head works the same way. We want to put that red dot where we want the round to go. Follows the same basic principles somewhere down in that reptilian brain of ours. Another great thing, across all lighting conditions, whether it's pretty dim or super bright, the red dot works extremely well. Now, they've also got the green dot out now, which is pretty effective. You know, if you look at the mechanics of the way the eye works, green dot is supposedly far more effective than a red dot, but it's still the same principle. It works really well across all lighting conditions. And that again, speeds up that shot. That speeds up that acquisition in that first round. Another great advantage is situational awareness. Mounting a red dot a little farther forward on the upper receiver, and especially at size, it gives you more ability to scan the area around you or the environment around you. You can see a lot of stuff in front of you if you've not got anything blocking your sight, especially like a larger magnified optic. And of course, being zero magnification, that's also good for you. Both eyes open, all you're doing is you're superimposing that red dot wherever you need that projectile to go. One of the other great things about a red dot is folks with astigmatism can still use it effectively. Roughly 30% of the population suffers with some severity of astigmatism. A red dot actually works really well for that. You know, an astigmatism creates sort of a bloom or a blur where that red dot is. You can actually reduce the intensity of that red dot. Most all of them have some form of adjustment to where it brightens it or dims it. But reducing that intensity reduces the bloom. And of course, always, you're superimposing that red dot on where that projectile needs to go. So again, makes it still very quick, even if you have that astigmatism. Some designs of red dots are a little better than others when you're talking about astigmatism. But here's the thing, usually decreasing that intensity and of course increasing the size of the red dot. So go from a 2-minute of angle to a 4-minute of angle. That also helps the shooter get rid of that bloom. So remember, you can have 20/20 vision and still have astigmatism. And remember, anytime you go up on the dot size from say 2-minute of angle to 4-minute of angle, remember you're also covering up more of the target. So precision work is not going to be there, but what you gain in speed, especially when you're using it in a CQB environment, you're going to be real happy with how it performs. So let's talk about getting this thing on your rifle. So you'll notice that we've got a cantilever mount here. That allows us to get this thing as far forward as we can. And that's the general rule of thumb. Getting the red dot mounted as far forward on the upper receiver as you can is the best place to put it. 1, for situational awareness, and 2, if you got night vision on your helmet, well, that also gives you the ability to have that distance between the back of the optic and your helmet. Anything that uses a threaded fastener, remember guys, this thing is going to be beat on. It's going to go through different heat and cold cycles, and hopefully you're running the living snot out of this thing. So when you tighten a fastener, do yourself a favor. Put a little witness mark on the fastener and then on a corresponding piece not on the fastener so you can see if this thing's loosening up. Always make sure that you're checking that before you get the gun out. There's nothing more embarrassing about being in the middle of a string and the optic coming off the gun. Ask me how I know. Co-witness, let's talk about that real quick. So what is it? It's the relationship between the red dot and the front sight. There's a lot of folks out there that will tell you to use an exact co-witness red dot with that front sight. That works, I'm not gonna argue it, but a taller red dot seems to work a lot better. It is a lot faster and it's a lot more effective if you're using nods. Now, why would I want to use something different? Why would I want to use that exact co-witness? Well, here's the reason. I'm gonna sort of throw this on here and you can see the difference between the center line of this aim point and the center line of this aim point. Well, when we throw a magnifier on there, that magnifier is going to sit at the exact co-witness level. Now, these are available from a number of different manufacturers. Trijicon, Aimpoint, Mepro even makes 3X and a 4X. All great products. But I will tell you that there's a problem. Anytime you add a magnifier behind a red dot, you eliminate one of the great advantages of the red dot, which is you just threw your parallax-free aiming out the window. Now you've got to be worried again about where my head is in relationship to this, so the eye box, and then making certain that my head is in the same location or pretty stinking close every time that I've got the magnifier on. Now, do we run the magnifier constantly? No. That's the reason why there's a lot of these that are flipped to the side. Now, why would you want a magnifier? There's several reasons. You know, we talk about acquiring the target. Well, identifying the target is critical also. Using a magnifier, that can help you identify a target at distance so you can make that decision, is this something that I want to put a round on? So here's our next topic of discussion. How do I zero a red dot? Well, most folks are going to zero their carbine at 100 yards. When you start talking about speed though, let's talk about one of those great advantages, the 36-yard zero in a red dot. It is crazy fast. And that also means that you've got a very small window between CQB distances and 250 yards where that red dot has to be moved around in order to hit a target at about 6 inches in diameter. So 36-yard zeros work exceptionally well with red dots. It's not a necessity, but it does speed up that target acquisition, and you're pretty much going to hit anything that you're shooting at between 15 yards to 250 yards. Now here's where the naysayers are going to come in. Well, my grandpa didn't use one in World War whatever. Well, I guarantee you if he had had one, he sure would have used it. Now, it doesn't add a lot of weight. It doesn't add a lot of bulk. But yes, it does add some. And it uses batteries. The grand old message from those in times past, anything that uses batteries can fail. Well, another great advantage that we've seen within the last several years are the shake-awake optics, as well as people that use much higher quality LEDs that have a much longer lifespan. So those batteries will last tens of thousands of hours. Yes, you do need to check them. Yes, if you've got guns sitting in the safe that you haven't had out in 2 or 3 years, yank those things out of there and make sure that the batteries are still good. That goes for everything, not just the optics, but also for lights and lasers. But I can tell you this, with minimal penalty in weight, minimal penalty in size, the red dot optic is one of the absolute best accessories that you can purchase for an AR platform rifle, or for that matter, anything that you're going to take out there and put projectiles on target. Thanks for spending your time with us today. If you learned something, why don't you hit like and subscribe? Leave us a quick note in the comments. If you got something else that you'd like to learn about, hit us up there too. Why don't you come visit us at risearmament.com. Check us out on Facebook and Instagram. Have a great afternoon.